How is Ryan Day still employed? And how is the athletic director coming out with a vote of confidence?
Because he makes money. That's why. It's the only I've been saying this all year. It's the only reason, the sole individual protector of Ryan Day is that dude makes money. That's it. I'm telling you, because everyone wanted to come out and say, "Oh well, oh the expectation." I love this hot take by all the talking heads after Ohio State loses to Michigan. Oh well, now it's definitely a national championship or bust for Ryan Day. Well, then what was it before the season? What was it before we got the $20 million roster, best roster in college football? Flipping recruits from Alabama. Like, you're telling me the expectation coming into the season wasn't national championship or bust? Of course it was. So the reality with Ryan Day is this dude has time and time again shown us what his ceiling is. Some guys aren't cut out to win the big game or to win the game they should.
Ryan Day should not still be the head coach at Ohio State. You can't. The only game of consequence was Michigan. That was it. And you didn't even compete in that game. And you didn't even. I am at a loss for words as to how Ryan Day is still employed. I am. Lopes fan Gabe, good morning. Big 12 homers shouldn't be pissed at the SEC for being dominant. They should be pissed at nameplates like OSU, TCU, Tech, and Utah for being hot ass.
Yeah, 100%, dude. 100%.
Facts.
And here, let me be a Utah homer. I wouldn't even be upset with Utah this year. I think Utah gets a pass because their struggles were decided by Gatorade coolers and Gator tackling their quarterback repeatedly and, injuries abroad. Like, that's just what happened to you. So, yes, it's disappointing. Yes, brutal season. Yes, borderline embarrassing, frankly. But at least with Utah, you can say, well, their whole roster was decimated with injury.
Correct.
So their season basically ended, 4 weeks in or whatever it was. But I would agree with this sentiment that generally speaking, yeah, you should be talking about these mediocre ass head coaches who seemingly get a free pass every year and do nothing about it. Like, it's terrible. You're here.
Mountain Mama, a member of the show for 16 months. And Mike, while I was on vacation sunning myself like a whale ass on the beaches of Maui, I want you to know that I heard the Hawaiian version of West Virginia, Mountain Mama. And I thought of you, Mike. And I wondered aloud, I wonder how happy Mike Smith is today that Neil Brown's fired. And I'll say, West Virginia fan, I'm happy for you.
It finally happened.
The billboards worked. Neil Brown's not good enough to be the head coach at West Virginia. And West Virginia made a statement that what Neil Brown's done is not good enough. And we expect better out of our football program because we're not Baylor and we're not Texas Tech and we're not Okie Light. We're West Virginia. And I say,
hell yeah.
Hell yeah. Way to go, Mike. I'm happy for you.
By the way,
Neil Brown fired. I reached my 21 quota in one day.
Dude, that's my guy right there, dude. Attaboy, bro.
21.
Oh, Mike, I hope you're well. You just made my point. They are not watching Arizona State in the Big 12. The Big 12 has no elite programs, which is the problem. 100% correct. I think they don't. There's not an elite program. So that's why I say there's no elite program in the Big 12. What makes you think that they're better than the SEC?
Yeah.
Or on par? Because I've heard all of this about how BYU can compete with Georgia, or no, they can't. I love what BYU's done. What have they done? 10 wins, 3 of the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Great season.
Clearly improving.
But if you look at who's Alabama, Jalen Milroe or Jake Retzloff, I'm actually taking Jake Retzloff.
Yeah, I think he's a better pure quarterback.
Wide receivers, I'm taking BYU's wide receivers. That's where it ends. That's it. The lines, Alabama. The secondary, Jacob Robinson, yes. Everybody else, Alabama. Linebackers, Alabama. Edge, Alabama. Offensive line, Alabama. Running backs, Alabama. It's not, and I don't think it's close.
Coordinators.
I really like Jay Hill. I think Jay Hill is one of the best defensive coordinators in the country.
You know who I'm talking about. Aaron Roderick.
The guy drives me crazy.
And
I know we've talked about this with BYU all season long. Aaron Roderick's part of the problem at BYU. You'll never hear that. Nobody will ever say that. Aaron Roderick will not be replaced. Aaron Roderick is not a good play caller. How many times are we going to throw the ball down the field, like go for a home run play on first down and then play for 2nd and 10 and then 3rd and 8 and then punt?
I think it's a great point because before vacay happened, we were talking about BYU and Arizona State, right? We were talking about, hey, gotta go down to Tempe and handle business. What did we say you couldn't do early in that game if you wanted to win the ball game? Well, can't be taking deep shots on first down on your first possession and think that that's going to end well for you. What did we get? 2nd and 10, deep shot down the field, incomplete, 3 and out, ball game's over. That's what we got. And I have to say, there are times when I'm watching BYU and I'm like, man, love the RPO call there. Like the SMU RPO was a phenomenal thing. What everybody forgets is Jake audibled into the RPO.
Yes, he did.
That wasn't a play call out of Aaron Roderick.
And the thing that this is the Iowa State conversation.
Yeah.
I love Rocco Becht. I love him as a competitor. I think he is not good enough to be a conference championship caliber quarterback.
Yeah. So again,
the last month, Iowa State's gotten exposed a little bit here. And so now you're in a situation with, when we talk about the Big 12, SEC, ACC, you're in a situation now with the ACC and the Big 12 where you have two teams that nobody gives a hot ass about.
Yeah.
I saw that video in Florida or in Hawaii as well. And
hot ass.
I could watch that video 100 times. Nobody gives a rat's ass about Iowa State and ASU. Nobody knows the Fighting Dillinghams. 9 out of 10 football fans in this country don't know who the starting quarterback at Iowa State is.
Yeah, you notice how much media Kenny Dillingham's doing? Why do you think that is? You think he wants to be doing that much media?
No.
You think a guy who is an absolute football junkie, which I love about Kenny, you think that dude really wants to be sitting in his office on camera for, I don't know what, probably 2 hours a day doing interviews? No, he doesn't. But he has to because the Big 12 needs him to do that. So I'm just telling you, with all due respect here, I don't think we've proven your point. I think that you're running from what you said about the SEC. And I don't think that you want to admit as a Big 12 fan that you hate the SEC because they are deep, because they have earned more spots in the college football playoff. And that's fine. If a Big 12 fan would just say that, I'd be like, yeah, dude, I get it. I'd hate the SEC too. I'm with you. I understand.
I think that the issue is that we don't know who the best team in the Big 12 is, because for a hot second, it was BYU. For 3 weeks, it was Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think for the last 3 weeks, it's Arizona State.
Yeah, and it was Iowa State at one point.
But I don't know who that is right now. And I don't know that there is a best. It's the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Who's the best team in the Big Ten?
But see, at least in the Big Ten, we can say, okay, well, on any given year, right? This year, any year you want to point to, it's one of the three. And now one of the four because of Oregon, right? Oregon, Penn State, Michigan,
I think Ohio State is massively disappointing.
Yeah.
I think it is one of the most humiliating seasons I've ever seen out of Ohio State. And John Cooper was really not great. And Ryan Day, obviously Michigan sucks out loud. I look at Indiana, I think that's an average-ass football team. I look at Oregon. I think they've had moments. Is that an elite football team? We're going to find out.
Yeah, I think what's difficult with Oregon is you're going to have a really hard time saying they're not elite based on the last 15 months of their football program.
Okay, well, but you lost to Washington, who was clearly better than you multiple times. And I just asked this year, what's the big win where you're like, well, goddamn, that's one of the best teams in the country? Because now it's not Ohio State. Because Ohio State is not elite. Sorry, you're not elite. You're great on defense. Phenomenal on defense.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what to think of Will Howard. I love my guy, Will Howard.
So so just to play devil's advocate, if Ohio State's not elite anymore, does that make the Michigan win better? Like Michigan beat Ohio State, the second ranked team in the country at that time, right? Over the weekend. And Oregon.
Michigan sucks.
Dominated
Michigan sucks. Michigan is not a good football team. They're not a bar. They're untalented. Even when they're healthy, they're not talented. They're not well coached. They do not execute.
Mm-hmm.
Michigan's not a good football team. So no, it doesn't make the Michigan win better. And I look at, again, the proving ground. And to Harry's point, because I actually think that it's a really good point about who's elite and who's not and what is and what isn't. If we look at this right here, look at Oregon. Their strength of schedule is 60th. Why is their strength of schedule 60th? Oh, because they haven't beaten anybody. Because their big wins are Washington in a down year. Congratulations, you beat Washington in a down year. And Jed's not going to have that program down long. Wisconsin, Maryland, Michigan, Illinois, Purdue. Ohio State, that win doesn't look great anymore. Yeah, Michigan State, UCLA, Oregon State, Boise State, Idaho.
Yeah, I guess the difference is that I can easily say that, Oregon, I believe, can compete with any SEC team. I think that they belong on that football field. Like, that's a matchup I want to see. I want to
find out.
Well, yeah, but what I'm saying is when you look at Oregon, is Oregon elite? Yeah, I think Oregon's elite. I think that they haven't played an SEC schedule, of course, because they're in the Big Ten. But with Oregon, you could say, okay, yeah, I could see Oregon, being in the same position Bama's in. I could see Oregon being the third team in the SEC. Do I think Oregon's just outright better than Texas or Georgia? No, I don't. I think that that's the game I want to see, though. I want to see Oregon play those teams, and I would love to see it at a neutral site. I don't want to see it at Autzen. I want to see what you can do on the road. So to me, that's why I think Oregon-Penn State, the Big Ten championship game, that's a measuring stick game. Everyone says Penn State's legit. Okay, cool. Let's see it. Let's see them play Oregon and see what happens. If Oregon manhandles Penn State, you're going to have a tough time saying Oregon's not elite because they just dominated Penn State, who everybody and their mom is saying is a top 5 team in the country. So that's where
you've given up more touchdowns than you've scored at Oregon. You're by yards per game, you're a top 10 defense in the country with the 60th ranked strength of schedule. Whereas Ohio State's got, by statistically speaking, they've got the best defense in the country. And I think most of us who watch a lot of college football have seen that. Does Indiana have one of the best defenses in the country? Certainly not the second best defense in the country, right? Like I look at, and again, this is where who you've played matters, right? Like I look at Ole Miss. Ole Miss has given up 313 yards a game. In the SEC, that's an elite defense.
Yeah, some of the best offenses in the country.
That's an elite defense. I look at Notre Dame. Notre Dame has played nobody. Nobody. They're the 10th ranked defense in the country. I think they're really, really good.
Yeah.
They're not one of the 10 best defenses in the country. And I know that because I obsess and watch far too much.
But this is why the Ryan Day thing is such a problem. And if you're an Ohio State fan, I don't know. I mean, generally speaking, the sentiment is that he should have been fired on the spot, which I agree with. I think that, that's definitely leave him on the tarmac material, 100%. But I just look at Ohio State and I say, man, like at some point you're spending all this money. You gotta get the ROI. And Ryan Day's not the guy for the job. And at some point, it becomes too painful to keep saying, yeah, man, best roster in the country. We're making almost $300 million a year through our athletic department. Most of that's in football, but we're making a lot of money. We're in a great place financially. We got to find a guy who can go and win us national championships, because if we do that, think about how much that changes the conversation in the Big Ten. If the Big Ten has Ohio State, Oregon, Michigan, and Penn State, those 4 teams all in contention to win a conference championship with a month left in the season, you're in a great place in the Big Ten. You can compete with the SEC at that point. You guys understand that? The Big Ten has that opportunity. They have the opportunity to go out and compete with the SEC late in the year. But to do that, folks like Ohio State are going to have to make some painful decisions.